One of my very favorite ships in World of Warships Legends is HMS Nelson, and now, as of May 5th, 2025, HMS Nelson's sister ship, Rodney, is in the game. You can buy it in the store if you so choose. There's two options, one pack for 19,000 doubloons that gives you the ship, as well as a unique flag and some economic bonuses. I wouldn't really recommend going for that. Instead, simply scroll to the ship tab in the store, filter to the UK ships, and you'll find the Rodney for the regular Tier 7 price of 17,500. Were I not a CC for World of Warships Legends, I would certainly be buying this thing. I played it about 11 times last night, had a lot of fun with it, and I'm here to give you my first impressions. I've got a couple highlights for you, actually, because I recorded so much footage that I didn't think I could boil it down to just one match. And what you're seeing play out right now on the screen is the very first match I played in HMS Rodney, where we got into a little bit of a brawling situation. And that's one of the main things that differentiates Rodney from its sister, HMS Nelson. Not only that, but it's a Tier 7 ship to Nelson's Tier 6. What exactly justifies putting it a tier higher? Well, we'll get to that in a little while. First, we should talk about the stats, and I should show you my commander build real quick. I'm using Fisher. You don't have to use him, of course. Xarkun Nelson would be a good commander. And there's something going on with the consumables. Note that I've got an engine boost running. You can change the engine boost, or at least by default, I think, it comes with sonar. Sonar's got a 4.4 kilometer ship detect and spots torpedoes a little further. I think it lasts for just over a minute, and you get 2 charges. You can choose either that or the engine boost. I chose the engine boost specifically because Fisher has a skill called Speed is My Armor that increases the ship's speed and also decreases the damage taken while the engine boost is active. That's primarily the reason I chose it over sonar, was just to make full use of Fisher. Now, some people might think that's crazy, but the Nelson, and by extension the Rodney, are very good at dodging torpedoes. All the guns are on the front, very easy to zigzag in this ship. You just need to have good map awareness and good game sense in order to know where the enemy DDs are and dodge the torpedoes accordingly. I don't think the sonar is required, but I imagine that take is going to be pretty controversial. Feel free to let me know how controversial you think it is in the comments section. Speaking of torpedoes, though, Rodney has some of her own, and let's start there with these torpedoes, because with Fisher at the helm, they have a range of 7.4 kilometers. I think it's just 7 base. They go at 67 knots, and as you can see from them making contact against the turrets, they do a lot of damage. They're basically nuclear missiles in the water. 29,367 is the maximum alpha damage, and they reload in a whopping 40 seconds, so you can release them into the water quite quickly in succession. With that limited range, you do have to be close in order to get use out of them, but again, this was the very first match I played in Rodney, and look at us finding use for these torpedoes. Not once, not twice, but 3 times once they make contact with this Delaware right in front of us. And of course, its guns are good too. They're much like the Nelson's guns, but with some differences. They are 9 16-inch guns all on the front of the ship, and they have a 20.3 kilometer range with this build and a 23.5 second reload. That's with the John Fisher build and the reload mod in the 4th slot, which does make the turret traverse pretty bad. We have a 41.4 second turret traverse, and that's with Mikhail Kedrov for some WD-40 as an inspiration. First game in the Rodney, pretty good. Not quite top of the leaderboard, but a good result for the very first match in the ship. High caliber, and the Dreadnought medal as well. Back to the guns, though, on HMS Rodney. It's got HE as well as AP, but the big difference in the gun power seems to be on the HE. Nelson's got an HE alpha in excess of 6,000. Rodney's maximum HE alpha is 5,950, and I think it might not have as much pen as Nelson has. Not sure on that, But it's not as if the HE is useless. Just ask that Asashio over there. Also, the fire chance on the HE is only 32%. Pretty low by British battleship standards, so the AP here seems to be the bread and butter. We've got, I believe, the same AP Alpha as HMS Nelson, 12,000, and that's unmodified by any commander skills, of course. Plus, these guns have a different sort of dispersion formula, as far as I can tell, compared to HMS Nelson. They appear to have the Russian battleship formula. The accuracy really does drop off at range, but at close brawling range, well, you know, they are very accurate and they hit hard. Just ask the Xarkun. He's about to go down in this game for our second kill. We should also talk about the armor, and that's where things get a little bit interesting. One of the reasons that this ship can sit at Tier 7 versus Nelson's Tier 6 is because Wargaming has improved the bow and the stern plating. Aside from that, the armor scheme is identical to HMS Nelson, and it's got the trademark gigantic citadel. Do not give broadside in this thing. It will be one of the most easily dev-strikeable battleships in the entire game. However, unlike Nelson, the bow and the stern is 30 millimeters, so you can bow tank anything with 16-inch guns. Nelson cannot do that. However, 30 millimeters can of course be overmatched by one of my other favorite ships in the game, USS Georgia, as well as Republique at Tier 8. So if you run into any of those, you're effectively like Nelson at Tier 6. You need to angle the belt and try to bait the enemy ships into shooting at the belt. In order to do that, you probably have to be further away from them than brawling range, because they can simply aim at your bow and go right through it, and they'll have no problem accessing the citadel. Now, theoretically, the bow should be bouncing 16-inch shells, but I did run into something very, very odd when I was playing Rodney, and it happened in this match. Take a look at Azur Lane, New Jersey out there. You see, we've made short work of his team, and we've taken a lot of damage in the process. We're only on 14,650 HP, but it's just Azur Lane, New Jersey, and one unspotted cruiser somewhere up to the north, I believe a Wichita. We're going to move in here as we are dark against Azur Lane, New Jersey. We shoot our guns, and we've got our bow pointed toward him, thinking we're perfectly safe. He shoots at us, the dispersion looks awful, and somehow one single solitary shell finds its way into my citadel. I'm not exactly sure how that happened. I don't know if it hit the casing on the turret, penetrated that, and got the citadel. I don't know. That's the only time it happened. It certainly didn't go right through the 30mm bow plating with overmatch. But yeah, I have really no explanation for that. And now we get to full battle. This was the highest damage I've achieved so far in Rodney, but don't worry, I intend to be playing it a lot. I find it very, very fun. And while this battle starts, there's no destroyers in it. It's going to be a bit of a slugfest. We'll go over the rest of the stats before we get into the meat and potatoes of it. We've already talked about the main battery guns, the torpedoes. Let's talk about the consumables real quick. I own Rodney on WoW's PC, and so I didn't quite know what to expect because on that game, it's the same exact tier as Nelson. Here on Legends, we have it a tier higher. On the PC, Rodney doesn't enjoy Nelson's super heal. On Legends, it does. It gets 2 repair parties base. You can increase that to a total of 4 with the Master Mechanic skill. And the repair party does 1,432 HP per second for 17 seconds. It's enough to restore about half of your HP, as you've already seen. So not only do we have improved armor over Nelson, we retain its trademark super heal. And then, of course, you can change the engine boost for the sonar, or vice versa. By default, it comes with sonar, and again, the stats on that are a 4.4 kilometer ship detect, 3.1 kilometer torpedo detect, and a duration of 96 seconds. Not quite the 3-minute duration of British destroyer sonar, but similar parameters otherwise. And the engine boost is just a standard 8% engine boost. I'm using that, again, just because of John Fisher and his legendary skill, speed is my armor. But you could go either way. I don't think you strictly need the sonar. As I said earlier, if you have good map awareness and good game sense, you can generally know the positions of enemy destroyers. And with all your guns on the bow, you can do what I like to call the Nelson shuffle, where you zig and zag after you know that the destroyer has launched its torpedoes. Zig every 30 seconds, zag every other 30 seconds. You'll avoid the torpedoes pretty well, even without the sonar. And the engine boost lets you use John Fisher's full potential. But really, you could go either way. Frankly, I don't understand why they make you choose between the engine boost and the sonar. You've also got that secondary consumable in one consumable slot. I don't know what use that is for Rodney. The secondaries only have a base range of 5 kilometers, 5.2 maybe. And, well, they don't seem super accurate or anything like that. I don't know why you would build into them and need that consumable. But, hey, balancing decisions, I suppose, right? Speaking of the engine boost, the maneuverability here is nothing special. It's got a top speed just half a knot over Nelson, I believe 23.4 or 24.4. With Fisher at the helm and with a speed flag, we enjoy a top speed of 25 knots, and if we deploy that engine boost, we can get up to 27, which is by no means fast, but it's fast for this ship and the Nelson. By far, Rodney will be one of the slowest battleships at Tier 7, rivaling the likes of things like Kansas, for example, the American dreadnoughts. And the slow speed isn't that much of a problem, but I think you do kind of want to get this ship in close so you can make use of the apparent Soviet dispersion gimmick and these 16-inch guns, which just hit like freight trains at close range. The concealment is also very good, much like the Nelson. We have a 12.4 kilometer concealment, but we could get 11.8 if we wanted to use Kondo and Azerlane Sovetski Rossiya or Swirsky as the inspirations. I think I clocked the concealment at 11.8 with double concealment inspiration, but the turret traverse was like 52 seconds without Mikhail Kedrov, so I decided I would use him and Kondo. Those are the two inspirations on the build, as you've seen. I also tried out Azerlane Nelson as a commander, but I like using Fisher, to be honest with you. He's also, I think, a freely obtainable commander, unlike Azerlane Nelson, and he'd be a great choice for this ship. But of course, you can use Nelson. I think her skill, Big 7, has a little bit less value for Rodney, just because Nelson's HE is better, in the sense that it hits harder and has a better fire chance. And of course, Big 7 increases both the AP and HE alpha at the expense of a 16% nerf to penetration, which is quite significant. It doesn't seem to hurt as much on the Nelson, but I expect it's probably not optimal for the Rodney, particularly since I found myself using a lot more AP in Rodney than I would in Nelson, and cutting down the AP pen by 16% seems like a bad idea, even if it does have improved dispersion at closer ranges and you can really dial in the aim to hit what you're looking for. Now, for its overall tankiness, because it has this super heal and a decent armor scheme that can't be overmatched by anything except Georgia or Republique at these tiers, well, you can use it to tank. And with all the guns being on the front, I know most battleship mains in this game just love to sit still and bow tank. You can do that in Rodney, certainly, and you can get away with it even while being melted with HE spam in the secondaries of German battleships. Plus, you've got these torpedoes that, as of now, it doesn't seem like every player in the game is necessarily wise to the fact that Rodney has these nuclear missiles coming off its bow. We're going to get some more torpedo hits here in this match. And again, this was the highest damage I achieved so far in Rodney. There's another good hit on the Bismarck. You can see just how nice these guns are at these close ranges. It really does lend itself to a kind of brawling playstyle. And this super heal, every time it cools down, well, we can restore quite a bit of HP with it. This is fairly undynamic gameplay, though, sitting here and bow tanking, and in order to do it, we had to spend the entire first part of this match simply getting into position, pushing into the center of the map as we noticed the majority of the enemy team coming for this flank, and then getting toward this flank by putting this island next to us to block any shots from the battleships to the south of this cap. It's working out pretty well, and these guys continue to push out one by one as if they're paid actors donating their HP to us. Amagi is the next donation, and there he goes for our first kill of the game following the fist we got. Now we're in a bit of a sticky scenario where we really cannot push forward. We've got Iowa behind that island, and then we've got Veneto somewhere behind that island. If we go forward and we're surrounded by either of these guys on both sides, we're going to be caught in a crossfire. And as I said early on in the video, and showed you, I believe, this ship has a very exposed citadel, and the 32 millimeters of armor belt, it can bounce 16-inch guns when properly angled, which, by the way, you angle it the exact same way you do as the Nelson. It can do that, but if you're not angled enough and the battleship gets pens, they will almost certainly citadel you. And I'm sure this thing can be dev-struck in one salvo by the likes of Iowa or Veneto, so we need to be careful. However, the enemy Kaga is presenting another donation to us. I suppose he's a paid actor as well. He's decided a good idea would be to push in straight toward me where I can see him over the island and point his bow at me. That doesn't matter, of course. We can overmatch his bow, and our guns are accurate. It's like 10, 12k salvos every time we shoot. We're up to 140,000 damage, and, well, the Rodney doesn't have great AA parameters. I don't think I touched on that, because who cares? But the AA is not good. Doesn't really seem like it can defend itself very well against most enemy ships, and that's no surprise. Nelson itself might as well not have any AA. It also is particularly bad, but we've got that super heal that can come in handy, and we don't really have to worry about the fires Kaga is lighting. Veneto is coming in, also one by one, making sure that he and the Iowa do not approach me at the same time. We've got a torpedo for him, but we don't need it. We're able to find his citadel with the main battery AP shells, get the high caliber, and get our second kill of the game. And we've been busily turning the tide in this match, as far as I can tell. Kaga is next. Since Veneto is gone, we are safe to push in without worrying about being caught in a crossfire, except the kind of crossfire that only a CV can make. Well, the CV is sunk, and he's only got his HE bombs in the air, so we should be fine. We're 27 seconds off a super heal, and it's just Iowa left on this flank that we've got to deal with, so we can farm a little bit more damage before all is said and done. And as we move into position to do that, I will, of course, do more videos on the Rodney in the future. I expect to be playing it quite a bit. Nelson is one of my favorite ships in the game, and this might be one of my new favorite ships in the game. I think it's very powerful, it's very fun, and it's got things going for it that make it different from Nelson. I don't think you would want to be brawling with Nelson. Some people might tell you that that's an okay idea, but I think not. Not when you have 26 millimeters of bow armor that can be overmatched by everything you're going to face at the tier, in the case of Nelson. Rodney doesn't really have that problem, and it's got these torpedoes to augment its brawling capabilities. We'll see the last bit of brawling here against USS Iowa before this battle concludes, and we achieve our highest damage so far in HMS Rodney. There's one torpedo for Iowa, and the second is approaching. Keep in mind, all of you out there, if you see Rodney, don't let it get within 7 kilometers of you. It'll hit you with these nuclear torpedoes. And they do a lot of damage. They took us from 167 to 198, nearly 200k. That's the most damage I've gotten so far in HMS Rodney over about 11 matches last night. But I'm sure it's capable of much, much more. Now, of course, Tier 7 premium ships are quite expensive. 17,500 doubloons is like, what, 70, 80 US dollars? Something like that. So it is the cost, maybe even more than the cost, of an actual AAA game. You may not want to buy it for that reason, and I don't know if its addition to the store is permanent or just temporary. I don't think Wargaming has said. But if there's any premium Tier 7 ship I would recommend purchasing for 17,500 doubloons, it's this thing. this very well might be my new favorite Tier 7 battleship. I don't know. I don't know if I like it more than Georgia or not. But it is another take on HMS Nelson, and I think it's pretty great. So I hope you enjoyed this video. There will be more content on the Rodney to come, I'm sure. Give the video a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.